What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of the Daily Energy News Beat Stand-Up here on this gorgeous Wednesday, February 15th, 2023. As always, I'm your humble correspondent, Michael Tanner, coming to you from an undisclosed location here in Dallas, Texas, joined by the executive producer of the show, the purveyor of the show, and the director and publisher of the world's greatest website, EnergyNewsBeat.com, Stuart Turley. My man, how we doing today?
It was a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Man, I felt like I was a squirrel in a cage running around on that hoop today. It was a great day.
Yeah, that's a heck of an analogy. I'm gonna have to put that one in the bank to remember that. I just picture you on a hamster wheel losing your mind. But you stayed sane enough to line up a great show. In reality, I think we have some great articles. First article we're going to cover today, guys: European gas slides on signs that the worst of the energy crisis has been averted. Next article we have is U.S. to sell 26 million barrels of strategic crude oil reserves mandated by Congress when you think they couldn't get any dumber. Next, we have energy crisis. Europe's spend to shield consumers nears 800 billion euros. Where is the money going, Stu? We'll dive into the audit of where it's all going. Next, we have the UAE is worried about an oil supply shortage in 2022. I'm fascinated by this one. I'm very interested in what their analysis shows. Clearly, they've got Goldman Sachs running their trade.
I was about to say that.
I mean, it's clear. Next article we have is Biden's offshore energy boss says climate crisis is an opportunity. I mean, that's that the old saying goes, never let a good crisis go to waste. Stu will then kick it over to me. I'll quickly talk about what happened in the overall markets, specifically the crude oil and natural gas markets. Freeport starting some exports. I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing prices on the natural gas side up. Also some mixed weather. Crude oil currently trading about 78, 74. I will cover all that and a bag of chips, guys. But first, as always, check us out. World's greatest website, www.energynewsbeat.com. You will literally become smarter the more you go to it. Hit it all the time, all day, every day. If I was a YouTuber and I was a kid, I would say smash that like button, but don't. Lightly tap, follow, or bookmark it on your computer. It'd be convenient. EnergyNewsBeat.com. Enough of the pleasantries, though, Stu. Where do you want to begin?
You crack me up. Okay, let's start with European gas slides. Okay, European gas slides on signs of worst of the energy crisis averted. All right, let's cover some of this, and I'm going to go hogwash here in a second. Europe's fears are rationing blackouts haven't materialized due to a combination of a couple things: mild weather, curbed heating demand, while the race to the continent, not incontinent like Joe Biden, but continent. So race to import liquid natural gas to offset pipeline flows. Well, we know in one of our earlier podcasts, we talked about Norway picking up a big chunk. And that is huge for Norway as well as Europe. But in addition, several nuclear reactors have returned to service in France, which has extended its outage in its fleet. The return of Germany's Erzman reactor before its final closure in April, with another unit in Slovenia, has also been beneficial. Let me explain something here, Michael. Explain away, baby. Nuclear reactors, 50 ballpark reactors in France, 25 are operational. Again, give or take one or two. And the maintenance has been so bad on those things that I don't know how long they're going to keep those going. So nuclear reactors are not something that you should go to the lowest contractor or have no maintenance. How long can this go on that they're out of the woods? Okay,
that sounds fun. So now we're lowballing nuclear maintenance and creating thermal reactors that are prone to destabilization in the heart of Europe. That's great, sweet. That's fun.
Well,
that's fun.
But as we get excited about nuclear and we get excited about going to net carbon net zero, maintenance is critical. And for the last 15 years, the French have not paid attention to it. So this article is all wee, yay, but it's not. So let's go to the next one.
Let's go to the next one.
Hey, let's cover this one. You can't beat a story like this with a dead horse. The U.S. to sell 26 million barrels of strategic reserve oil mandated by Congress. All right, that dead horse just got up and we've been beating it again like you wouldn't believe. I thought that dead horse was all done and dead. The department has considered canceling the first fiscal year 2023 sale of the 26 million barrels after the Biden administration last year sold a record 180 million barrels from the reserve. Here's the gotcha, Michael. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Average price that was in the strategic reserve was $26 a barrel. The average cost, when you consider the amount of money, cost of capital, and everything else, even at today's price, is well over $85 by the time you put in cost of capital, cost of everything else.
Absolutely.
Guess where all that money went?
Probably FTX back into Maxine Waters' pockets.
Absolutely. You're well done, my young.
I'm learning from the best. Is that the right answer?
That was the right answer, dude. Rock
Okay,
on.
good.
Rock. We're going to the next one.
Well, no. Time out.
What?
You got to give me a chance to comment on the stupidity. You can't let me you can't just pass me over. I mean, there's not much more I want to add. If only if you did they not? I mean, what I love is that, I think this move is, remember, they were trying to buy oil at $69 to $72. That was the stated goal of this administration. So what I think this 26 million barrel releases is a last ditch effort to get the price down to 72 so they can buy and replenish exactly what they claim they did. So if anything, this is them trying to influence the oil markets. I mean, it's insane. The U.S., the Jennifer Granholm is the world's most influential oil trader. Ooh, that's spooky. Ooh, that's spooky.
Let me give you my 1.5 cents that is actually worth less than that now. What you're seeing is, and at my age, it's probably deflation. But when you sit back and take a look, the Biden, the House of Representatives, the House last week.
I'm sorry.
That was funny. But the House last week, voted in order to try to get a bill for not selling the SPR to China. Guess what the Biden administration is going to do this before they can get it even approved or through the Senate? They're going to get this SPR sold so they can sell it to China. And last time, Sinopco or Hunter Biden's company bought it. So anyway, thanks for letting me get that off my chest.
I was going to say, we couldn't go a whole show without mentioning Hunter Biden. What do you got next for us?
Oh yeah, let's cut that one off before I lose a blood vessel again. Okay, energy crisis. Europe's spend shield to consumers nears 800 billion pounds or euros. Where's the money going? You gotta like this one. How much money have the European countries spent on the country energy crisis? Norway spent 8.1 billion euros, according to the Bruegel analysis. Britain allocated 103 billion euros. And now here's the funny part of this, Michael. In a different article, Russia, are you holding up your hand for our podcast listeners? Are you asking me to hold and quit breathing?
I'm reading. I'm listening.
Okay. Your hand was up and I was like, wait a minute. I'm waiting on the edge for the great Michael to say something. No, okay,
There's
great.
not much going on. There's not much going on in here. Trust me.
Okay. Hey, so Russia is now busted because they're selling oil more than the sanctions, more than the $60. So that's playing into this. Sanctions could have saved a lot of money by not doing them the way they did them. So let's come on down here to this other part here.
My only question is this, Stu. So
Right.
where is this 800 billion? Is that just going into the pockets of like energy companies to is it direct payments to oil and gas or natural gas electrical providers, or what? Is it rebates on?
It is going to be
rebates?
electrical providers to try to offset the rise in prices to hold it down for consumers. Here's the problem.
I see. So a natural gas plant buys it at market price, which they can't afford anymore because it's $97,000 for an MCF over in Europe.
Right.
They then have to, okay, that makes more sense in my mind.
It does. However, there is graft going on, and in there it is saying that you go back and take a look. What happens anytime companies get money that's designated for clients, for consumers? They pocket part of it. What happened when Tesla and all the EVs or Ford or any of these others that were coming out with cars and they got the tax break? All of a sudden, they all increased their car prices by within $1 of the tax breaks. So it's not going to do anything for the consumer. So anyway,
I'm with you. What do you got next?
Yeah, both of us are going to kick that one down the can. This next one's kind of fun. The UAE is worried about an oil supply shortage in 2024. Michael, my head's exploded. It used to be supply. It used to be demand. Now we got geopolitical. We got Maxine Waters running around. I don't even know what, to think anymore. However, this is like our article yesterday. The industry has been plagued by several years of chronic underinvestment, OPEC Secretary General Haytham Al Ghas, I believe is how you pronounce it, said earlier this week. So everybody, we've been saying it for a long time. The world needs, I think, $2.5 trillion of investment just to keep our decline curves from failing, let alone a bump in demand. There was another article that came across the news desk today that said demand in the U.S. gasoline market is going up. So I can see why they're saying that in this. Yeah. What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think they're hinting at something that is definitely true. I mean, these guys intimately are aware of basin-wide, country-wide declines in terms of their ability to, bring new wells online. I mean, if there's anybody that's more intimately aware of that, it's places like Saudi Arabia, it's places like the UAE, it's places where they rely so heavily on oil and gas that runs their country that they're intimately aware at the top levels that, oil wells decline. I don't think, the average person would think when you produce an oil well, it just produces oil. Well, no, it fades over time. And a lot of times, especially today, it fades really quickly. You get majority of your production back in that first 6 to 9 months. And then the rest of you better hope you've paid out or close to pay out, because then you're going to steady off at a much, much lower rate than that thing turned on at. So I think for people who don't get that, which is pretty much everybody not in the energy business, it can be a little wonky when you think, well, why can't they just grow production? They're drilling wells. Yeah, well, the wells that they drilled last year, are not quite are now doing way worse than the new wells they're drilling, and the new wells they're drilling aren't quite coming in as high as the old ones. I mean, that's the other thing people don't think about. These new wells aren't as productive as the old wells that we drilled. Why? Well, because it's depleted. I mean, there's only, yes, there's a lot of oil still left, but there is only so much oil out there. You can't just go out and just poke a hole anywhere and find it. So I think it's a combination of anything. I mean, they do obviously have a vested interest in high oil prices, and I think this is part of their hope that them saying this is going to hopefully keep prices where they're at. And if this actually comes true, it's great for them, because they're selling enough oil that at $100 Brent, I mean, they're making, ungodly amounts of money. I mean, that's they got a taste of it for like 6 months, and they're like, "Ooh, we need that back. We need that back. That was fun. You know, everyone was partying, I'm sure. Infrastructure. Saudi Arabia is building some $1 trillion line city. I mean, it's disgusting what's going on.
Well, the cost.
We will do a podcast from that hotel, by the way.
Oh yeah, and you bet. And so when you take, I was visiting with, the head ambassador.
MBS.
Yeah, no, not MDS. But he, Novak. He was
Alexander Novak, the energy secretary from Russia. I always knew you were a Kremlin.
No, actually, he was this Novak was over their gas corporation. I met at an energy conference, and we were talking about the Gazprom. And so he was actually one of the head schmuckies over there at the Gazprom. They bring to market, their cost, Michael, is less than 15 cents.
Wow, it's insane.
It's in they have
15-cent lifting cost is absolutely insane.
I had to ask that again. In my broken English, that is usually a cross between Texan and Oklahoman, he barely understood that. But I said,
think about it. There's a whole industry of landmen that don't exist in Saudi Arabia.
No, in Russia,
there's literally an entire wing of the business that doesn't exist in Saudi Arabia because they don't need to go run title.
No, or
pretty obvious. It's who owns this?
Or royalties or anything else. That's right. You got it dead on right, dude. Well done.
What's next?
Biden's offshore policy boss says climate crisis is an opportunity. What did you say the Democrats always say?
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
I'm going to change that to old phrase. Let's change it from now on to politician, because I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat. If you're anybody with a supposed elected official, do not let a thing go. I'm tired of all of them. Okay, let's move on. Let me get off.
They're tired of you too, Stu.
I hope so.
Tired of you too.
I can't wait to meet some of them and make them mad again. Okay. This one gets me kind of worked up from the standpoint the president has been clear. We are in a climate crisis. We have a responsibility as the federal government to do something about that, and we can turn that opportunity into transition cleaner sources of energy. Klein told Bloomberg in her first interview in her new role. At the same time, focus will be doing it on the way that supports communities, while tapping American smarts and innovation, she added.
Yeah, I think it is interesting, though. They also point out in this article that they're still planning as much as 11 auctions for offshore oil and gas leasing between mid-2023 and 2028. So they're only going so far.
And which of the leases and those kind of things. Under the Inflation Reduction Act, the government's ability to issue new renewable energy rights is tied to the sale of oil leases. That was the good thing Manchin did. But it still doesn't mean that they can sell the leases. But the large big oil companies are going to be nervous because they're going to slow walk the permits. Once you buy a lease, then you have to go get the permit. Once you get the permit, then you can start the process. But then what happens? You're going to get somebody like Depends Man, Dr. Depends up there saying, hey, wait a minute, we don't want, oil and gas. So, that's a new superhero from DC Comics. Depends.
Diaper Man.
Diaper Man.
For all your needs.
For all your needs.
I'm done. Diaper Man. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think it's a great thing that Manchin did getting that provision in there. But I don't think permitting is really going to be the issue with it. I think it's how these zones that they're going to auction off, are they going to be the best zones? I mean, how much more, especially if we're not seeing oil and gas prices. I mean, there's a select few of companies that can buy these leases.
Okay, I want to ask this squirrely question. Speaking of hamsters on gerbil wheel, let me ask this one. Not that, but okay. all wind locations are good for wind, may not be good for drilling. What the hey, Batman? So what happens if there's a good drilling location and these guys, these chowderheads are only going to go over here and they're only going to do this area, but the gas is over here. We got a good seismic, we go in and we know where there's oil and gas now. But if they want the wind farm over here,
Do we?
a lot better than we did with my
I sat in on a meeting today. We plugged a well. Here's what it is. Drill a dry hole. Welcome to the business.
Considering my granddad discovered the North Slope, yeah, back then, yeah, we know a lot more than he was a brilliant dude. I got half his brains. Okay.
None of his hair.
Oh, geez. Thanks, dude. I did get his hair. But he was smart.
What do you got next? Are you done?
It, baby. I'm done.
Well, I'll keep it pretty light over here on the oil or on the oil and gas market side. As we record this at about actually on Valentine's Day here at about 5:50 or crude oil trading 78.81. I think the big kind of fascinating news that dropped today in the afternoon was the API came out. We had a forecasted 300,000 barrel build. API projects 10.7 million barrel build. The EIA looks to confirm that at 10 o'clock. Probably as you listen to this, the EIA will already have dropped their numbers. That comes out at 10 a.m. Wednesdays, Central Standard Time, or 10:30, I think. It's one of those numbers. You can check it out, dashboard.energynewsbeat.com for all of your data updates. We'd be remiss if I didn't plug our own product. So it's going to be very interesting to see how things trade relative to what that number comes in, Stu. I think, again, Russia slowing down their supply makes it fairly simple on the demand side. I think the real question is, these guys like Saudi Aramco, UAE, they believe that long-term we're going to have less, we're going to be undersupplied. The real question is right now, tomorrow, today, next month, where are we at? Right now, I mean, I wouldn't say it's balanced, but it's not as tight as I think people think. So I think as we move forward, into, Q3, Q4, roll into 2024, things will start to tighten up. But I think in that interim, there's enough on both sides. Looking at natural gas futures currently trading $2.58. We had a little bit of a cold streak come through, which is always good. It was actually raining this morning. Here in Dallas, and throughout that Midwest, it stayed fairly cold. I think we also are prepping for the fact that Freeport has begun delivering and exporting LNG. Reports coming out that they're about 50% capacity right now, which is always going to do well. So it'll be interesting to see how much that will drive prices up, considering the weakness in the overall markets. But that's really all that's happened today, Stu. I thought the other interesting note that really dropped right before we sat down was we had a little bit of an M&A deal. First, Vital Energy, they announced a Midland Basin acquisition, specifically acquiring the assets of Driftwood Energy Operating LLC, or known as Driftwood Energy for industry folks. To give you an idea, the deal was for 1.57 million shares of Vital common stock. They are a publicly traded company on the on the New York Stock Exchange, and also 127.6 million of cash. To give you an idea, that's about 215 million when you convert that stock to cash at today's prices. So about 215 million, which basically works out to their PDP. So to give you an idea, it's about 5,400 of BOE equivalent. If you go ahead and do 50, you go ahead and do about a 50,000 flowing BOE, you get somewhere in like the 250 range, 250 million if you do a 50,000 per flowing BOE numbers. So they got a little bit less. I mean, it's a market rate. It's a good deal. I mean, Driftwood's private equity backed, so their investment team's trying to cash out as much as they can. It's only 63% oil, 50% decline over the next 12 months. So there's a lot of oil that's I mean, think about that right now. In 12 months, it's going to be 2,200 barrels of oil a day, because it's probably all these new wells they're drilling on. They probably had a pretty successful drilling campaign. It'd be interesting to see the economics on those, because it's lower Midland Basin. I think it's a Wolf Camp D is what it looked like. I was scoping around on their website. But you know, it's Upton and Reagan County. They've got 16,000 acres. You know, maybe there's some undeveloped locations there. 80% of the transaction value was actually allocated towards Upton. So there's where they think most of the upside is. But again, you're looking at only 63% oil. So there's a lot of liquids there's a lot of gas over there. And at these prices, it about is what it is with, you know, it's tough doing a natural gas transaction now. I was, you know, at the bachelor party was at 2 weeks ago. I got a guy who works at a, you know, oil and gas, our private equity company, and they were in the middle of trying to buy a gas deal. And he says, it's just tough because, you know, every 3 days we got to update our price tags and the deals just get worse. Things tighten up. All of a sudden the dynamics, it's hard to change when there's so much flex in there. It's really interesting. He wouldn't fork over the details. I'm getting sources, baby. We're about to be legit news. You know, at some point I'm going to be breaking stories. At some point we're going to be breaking our own stories here. One day I will break a story on this show. I promise you that, folks.
I break every story I touch.
No kidding. You know, congratulations, the guys over at Driftwood and specifically their private equity company. What's the name of it? I think it's like Cardinal, you know, Cardilinian Energy Capital. I mean, to give you guys an idea, these are the guys behind the Bison Oil and Gas folks, Grit Oil and Gas One, and then our friend at DRW and One Energy Partners. So, you know, they're experienced in this. They understood when they needed to cash out. So hats all around. Vital gets some decent assets. It's a stock play for a public company. Instead of doing share buybacks, they go acquire some assets. I don't hate it. Good value, I think, but it'll be interesting to see in a year how these type curves look, because they could have either, you know, they could have massively overpaid for this depending on how that decline frame looks. If it's more like 65, 75%,
You're saying that if we had combo curve and we had you, then we could evaluate it. Is that what I just heard?
Yeah, we could have done a lot of different stuff if we had combo curve. I'm sure that it'd be interesting to see what software was used and involved with this. But yeah, it'd definitely be good. So, you know, I heard you had a good interview with, or David Blackton had a good interview with their CEO today. So,
oh yeah, it's good to talk to him again. So Armand,
yeah, it's great. We need you. Trust me, we need you. You got anything else, Stu?
Nah, just it's a beautiful day in the Ozarks.
Yeah, that's a new one. So with that, guys, we'll let you get out of here. Get back to work. Thank you for checking us out. World's greatest news website, energynewsbeat.com, Daily Show. Stuart Turley. I'm Michael Tanner. We'll see you tomorrow.